But I want to jump back to when you first got your license and you're looking to get into real estate. You mentioned something that I think is important, that as an agent, you are cold calling, right? Expired listings to try and recapture deals, right? One of the things that I talk to people all the time about how being an agent and being an investor are they're the same thing. There's really no difference besides the exit of the property. The conversations are really similar. It's just the different value proposition based off of whatever it is that the seller needs. So it's beneficial that you had that experience in the very beginning, because that kind of taught you the way to communicate and having those conversations to continually have a freaking someone spamming on the Twitch side. That's hilarious. So I think that's really important to note. Like y'all, as soon as he got his license, he just started calling expired listings. It's the same thing most of you guys do from Propstream's expired listings to try and make them a cash offer, because maybe they're tired of the MLS, right? He's just doing it from the other front. And then you continue on, and now you hop on Craigslist, and then your friend gave you is like, dude, just try to leverage what you already have. It's an easier sell to list a property than it is to pay cash, depending on the person's situation. There's definitely a lot more people that are more comfortable listing than they are paying cash. But you came at it like, hey, I'm going to offer them from the wholesale side first. But then you ended up listing them, and you still made $6,500. That's the average wholesale fee in some areas. $6,500 to $12,000 is pretty typical in places like San Antonio and Dallas and these really huge metro markets. So as an agent in your back pocket, it really gave you that jump start, which is super awesome. But then you kind of continued on. You tried to build a system around, that, and then you got burned over the course of that period of time, lost some money, and you're like, you know what do I got to do? Then you came and you started marketing in Jacksonville virtually here in January.
So I started in Jacksonville a little bit. Like I tried dabbling into it over the summer last year, but the person that had burned me back in November, we were trying to partner up, and we just he was willing to pay for all the expenses, and he wanted me to implement all the systems, but he was cheaping out on everything that I was suggesting. We wanted to hire a cold caller. He was like, oh, I got someone in my country that'll do it for $2 an hour. And I'm like, it's just not the same quality. It's not going to work. So I had so much data that I had bought that never even really got touched back over the summer. And that's when I kind of took a step back, and I was like, I need, now that I didn't have a partner in my ear and I was all on my own, I took all that data that I had from over the summer, and that's kind of what I started with in January. But I went out and got my own cold caller. It was actually a repeat customer that was the first deal. And then I reinvested the money that I made on the first deal in January. It was literally like I restarted into the business January 4th. And I had a deal locked up January 8th because I was pulling a list, and I saw a repeat customer on there. So I called her. I was like, oh, you have other properties? And she was like, yeah, I got 8. So that was like the first one that started. I took the money from that deal, reinvested it. Then I got a cold caller that I chose, got my own systems, found REISift, kind of put everything together. And then kind of really everything took over there from there when I started just focusing on it myself without having other people trying to come into my business.
I love it. So what were you doing? Like let's talk about systems a little bit in 2020 when you were cold calling and stuff. Were you doing bulk cold calling? Were you using a single line dialer when you were doing like the Craigslist stuff? Like how were you actually what would the typical kind of marketing look like in 2020?
So when I first started, it was actually so it started with cold calling because that was what I was familiar with, and that was another thing too. I was kind of all over the place. I wasn't just focusing on one thing. I was trying to do literally everything. I tried cold calling for 2 weeks, and then I'd be like, oh, screw cold calling, it's not working. I'd do SMS, and then I'd be like, fuck SMS, I'm not getting anything. Let me try Facebook ads. Dump $600 into Facebook ads, didn't get a lead. Then I'm like, oh, let me build a website. And I was all over the place. But the main thing. Yeah, dude, I was wasting money. And the main thing was the cold calling, though. I was using the Mojo dialer, and it started with just me calling. So I was just on a single line dialer, uploading my lists. Had no idea literally about recycling data. I would literally upload a list, call through it 3 times, trash the list, wouldn't even touch it again. I would just throw it away. It would just go to a dump folder, it would get erased. And then I would SMS it once because the CRM I use actually allows me to text blast for free. I kind of like rigged it a little bit because the CRM's provided through my brokerage. So I would take all those numbers after I would cold call them 3 times, and I would just text blast them, and then I'd text blast them again. And then that's kind of like how I was just pulling a couple of deals here and there out. And then, you know, the first deal that came through was like in Jacksonville was from a cold call. And it was from me cold calling, never from a VA. And then in the summertime was when, you know, this partner brought on, he had someone from his country. She started calling, no results, literally getting a 1% contact rate, hired someone else, 1% contact rate. I'm like, something is wrong. We're calling 10,000 people and we're literally barely even talking to 100 of them. It doesn't make sense. There's something wrong here. And then
dialer at that time.
Yep. I was using the dialer. Yeah, just a single line Mojo dialer. And that's how I was tracking the stuff. And I was listening. And then I went back and I started. I paid a little bit more and I added on the recording feature. And I noticed that like their Wi-Fi, they were in Jamaica, and the area that they were in was out in the country, and their Wi-Fi was so bad that I would listen to the calls and it was just muffle. So even the people they were talking to, like literally, they weren't even having conversations. So we wasted like 2 months of that just straight calling and burning through data for no reason. And then I stopped marketing for a couple months and was trying to do acquisitions with some other guys down in Jacksonville, and that's where I started to build a relationship. But you know, they weren't really in a position to add acquisition guy out of market yet. But I kept the relationship with them. And then that's kind of how, like, when I decided to, you know, come back into the Jacksonville market, I had those guys in place. I'm pretty sure they're actually SIFT users as well. I see them on the page, Nicholas, Alexis, you know, and you know, they were kind of my go-to guys when you know, they really helped me understand the market. I got a deal, I'd bring it to them and they would dispo it. They'd tell me what to lock it up at. And I was really just focused on locking the deals up. But yeah, to go back to your point, it was all cold calling.
All pretty much cold calling. Okay, so then, and what kind of data when you were getting the data to call, like those, you know, 10,000 records and everything, like what kind of data were you focusing on at that time? Were you focused on just straight high equity? Were you getting?
So at first it was pretty much all like high equity. I was just pulling pre-filtered lists from Propstream. You know, it was pretty much all high equity absentee. I'd pull some pre-foreclosure from Propstream, and then I would pull water shutoff. Water shutoffs actually, they don't call it water shutoff in that market. It's a disconnect list. So it's like water disconnect and electricity disconnect. And the first couple of times I ran through it, I realized that like the names and everything they give you on that list are actually the tenants' names that get disconnected when they move out of the things. So then so I'm calling my when I was doing all the calls, they were like, I used to live there. I don't own the property. And then I caught on, and then I realized I'm like, oh, I need to kind of like, you know, retrace just the addresses and get all the owners' names. So I did that through Propstream, and that's where a lot of my deals came from. Actually, was the disconnect list. And then now I've done a lot of digging into the county, and I pretty much get all my data from the county, except for the high equity, really. I mean, pretty much everything comes from the county that I'm pulling.
Yeah. Okay. So then, so now how does the preparation of data kind of look like? You have the county itself, which is, what is Jacksonville? It's Duval.
Yeah. Duval.
Yeah. Freaking big county too. And there's a lot of people there. And they relatively have a really nice county website. In fact, to get all of the equity data inside of Duval County, it's right around 65 to 75,000 records.
It's a lot. Yeah,
it's a good amount. It's a good amount of equity data. Pulling that's pulling high equity. That's pulling the unknown. I only know because I have it, right. Like it's a market where the location of which you're marketing is really important, and the county data is probably like ultimate, because there's a lot of pockets in Jacksonville, and there's a lot of markets that are really similar to Jacksonville where you have a lot of different pockets, and there's a lot of investors really focusing on like these pockets. Like right now where my office is at, it's in a place called Elliott Point in Fort Walton Beach. There's not enough Elliott Points in my market. In Jacksonville, there would be like 5 or 6 Elliott Points where are being redeveloped because it's really old community. There's a lot of houses. So if you're getting data, like how do you focus in, or how do you like how do you know where you're going to market? You just pull all that data and then you just kind of market into it? Or are you pulling the data and then like niching down into it to market? Like,
Yeah.
what does it look like?
So when I first started doing it, I actually was like marketing to all the hood zips, like, because that's like where most of my leads were coming from. But most of them, like, they weren't the greatest deals. So then, like I said, when I was working with like with Nick and stuff out in there, I started to learn where the best zip codes that the investors like to buy, and just knowing where most of my leads are coming from when I was mass marketing. I kind of niched down into not necessarily zip code oriented. Like I do filter out certain zips, but I kind of filter out values too. So like I don't market to super high value properties, like over $500,000. I keep it below a certain square footage on the properties. I filter out like commercial. I don't market to commercial. And that's how I was able to kind of like niche down it. So I'm not marketing to, a bunch of records. I'm marketing to certain records where I know that most of my leads are coming from. So, single families, I market the mobile homes, vacant land, 2 to 4 unit apartment buildings. And then I try to keep it below like, the $400,000 range on the value point. And I like to keep it below 2,500 square feet. And then doing that, it kind of filters it down to where I'm at a good amount of data that I'm not like, flooded with it, but I can really, use an REISift too. I can really pull certain buckets and campaigns that have a healthy amount that I can track easily.
Okay, cool. So we get kind of an idea from that county data. You get the bulk kind of base list from the Listsouce or Propstream or whatever to kind of have that equity kind of foundation. Now, what is the typical kind of marketing look like for you now? Then, like what does your team look like on your marketing side? Is it just you and a VA right now, or kind of what's that look?
So right now it's just me and a cold caller. So back in January, when I kind of reset everything and kind of got rolling again, it was just me. The first like 3 weeks, it was just me calling. I didn't even have the cold caller yet. And then I hired the cold caller once I locked that one deal down and got paid on it. And then I brought her on, and then so now I pretty much handle all of the leads that come in. So any of the follow up, any of the warm leads, cold leads, everything that comes in from the CRM from someone that says they are interested in selling, I call them back and I directly deal with them. And then pretty much, I do plan on expanding now going into May. I don't want to, because I like the method that you also preach with, try to stay as lean as possible. And, don't, because that was one thing I think I messed up too last year. I was trying to grow faster than I was even like, I was trying to be way more advanced than I actually was. I was trying to bring friends on and have them do acquisitions with me and everything when it was kind of unnecessary. But now I'm at the point where I want to start hitting different marketing channels. So it's been strictly 100% cold calling. And now I'm finally bringing the SMS back into it after doing, I took the auto lead gen challenge. And, I'm bringing the SMS back into it, and then, running through the whole flow. And then I want to bring direct mail into certain records that I'm not touching through SMS and cold calling, and try to just hit them from different angles. And then going on vacation in next week. And when I get back, I plan on doing the go no go challenge and really, really focusing in on that.
Awesome. I love it. What I really love about kind of like that moment that you had, I think some people just, I really have no idea what it is that makes somebody have that kind of, it's more like, it's kind of like an aha moment, but some people have it in the very beginning. Some people, it takes them a little bit. Some people get burned like you did, to where they want to like build out that system and really focus in on it. And it's kind of like I love how you took cold calling and you really like honed in on it. I'm sure you know what your KPIs are, what you want to focus on in the mass cold calling kind of sense, probably like more than 1,000 records, 10,000 records type cold calling, or even maybe over 5,000 phone numbers type list. And now you're saying, okay, well, now that I have this process going in, I understand that I don't necessarily need a bunch more data. What I need to do now is hit these other people in maybe a different way, because if I have 10,000 records, I know that some of them still want to sell. They're probably not picking up their phone because maybe they're the type of individual that only answer if it's a contact like me, but they wouldn't. Maybe they'll respond to that like I would. So I think that's really powerful. And then you're like, well, I know some of them still might not SMS. So if I know they're in a situation where they need to sell, I'm going to spend that a little extra money, send them that that postcard, because now I can say, okay, out of 10,000 records, if I'm focusing in that system, that sequential, what's called sequential marketing, down to 5,000 of them or 1,000 of them, I'm actually hitting more people than the person hitting 20,000, 30,000 records, because they're seeing me in every way that they might respond back. And I think that's really important. Like, and by doing that, ultimately your total cost of marketing and everything actually will slowly go down over time.
Yeah. I'm only spending about $1,000 a month right now on marketing.
Yeah. $1,000 a month. Now, does that include tools and everything, or is that just
everything?
And everything.
Everything, tools, VA, everything. The VA is about 500 a month, and then everything else is the other 500. And then, I mean, the biggest thing was like, because like the whole point that you just talked about, where it's like you're just throwing data out where you're not reaching it. I mean, you really opened my eyes up to that because I actually tried REISift last year, and I was so lost. I tried it last year. I actually DM'd you a couple times. We talked like literally last year, at the beginning of the year, and hello, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I think I lost you. Yeah, I actually DM'd you last year, and we talked for a little bit, and I actually was just like, I could not understand it. I didn't realize, I had no idea what it even was. I went into it, and I'm like, this makes no fucking sense to me. Like, I was completely lost, and I quit after like 3 days on it, and I went back to what I was doing. And then I saw it again this year. You know, I closed a $70,000 deal with these guys down in Jacksonville. And once I got all that money, like once I realized that money was coming in, I was like, all right, this is legit now. Like, let's go all in. I need to really, really put a system in place and really build this business out. Because, you know, $70,000 deal is like, I JV'd it. So I got 35K out of it. And that was just like a complete turning point for me. And I hit up Claudio. We talked about REISift a little bit, and then I got into the auto lead gen challenge and going into like just messing around with it on the free trial at first, and going through the emails that Zach sends out. I really, really started to understand it, and it opened up my eyes. Like, dude, I'm just throwing away all this data. Like, there's so much more than I have, because I was in the same position that a lot of people were in, where it's like you go through your data 2-3 times and you're like, well, I didn't get anything out of it. I need more data. But like, even if you have a 5% contact rate, like there's still 95% of the freaking data that you never even talk to. Like those people have a vexation and a distress that, I mean, most of them need to sell. I got people that are stacked on 7 different lists. Like, they probably, I just can't get in contact with them. So that should really open my eyes up a lot.
Yeah, and it's kind of like and a lot of people just say, hey, you know what, whatever, and because they can't reach them, really they look at it like it's a problem with the phone numbers, or it's a problem with something. Nobody would be able to reach them. It's you're giving up on yourself in actually reaching them, and that's where the biggest failure is like, okay, well, what is the next step? A lot of times it's just because you're missing some form of education to what would be the next step. It could be maybe you need a private investigator. Maybe you need Stephanie inside the community is like,
I commented on her post the other day.
At finding people. I need to bring her on the Ninja Cast to talk about the things that she does. And it's just kind of like McLean, sending a letter, what do you call it? The letter they have to sign for, right? From the USPS.
We just did that. We have a property that it's like a 50K deal, and we need one of the heir signatures. We can't get in contact with her at all. And we just sent her a FedEx package on Friday. We're waiting for her to get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just are you willing to do the things? Because we know that they're in a position where it's either they're going to need to sell, or the property is going to go to auction. It's one or the other. It's a question of, so you're bidding at auction with everybody else, or are you going to get a hold of it and get the seller some money?